You should not just do your best, you should live every day like it is your best. And it's another way of saying, well, live every day like it's your last, but indeed do your best, because that is even more so. People in politics and people all throughout the world are partaking in things they know they shouldn't do, or things that are like, oh man, I have to do this. It feels like a burden upon their life. And you might be one of those people. There are burdens within your life, and it's holding you down. It's holding you from your true potential, but the potential to be something in history, to create something great in the world, to improve the world that you may ever complain about, is to start living your best life so that the world can become its best. That process must happen, because if you continue taking burdens upon yourself and stressing yourself, it will come to show over time. The truth speaks all throughout time. We see this with governments where they rise and fall, and there's mass death and democide, the number one cause of unnatural death. But in the same way, on the micro individual level, an individual can become stressed and have all sorts of problems later on in their life. So it's important to connect the dots here and realize that you should live every day like it's the best, and become the best so you can do that, which means, keeping yourself with positivity, steering away from negativity, not ignoring the negativity, realizing it's there, but therefore addressing it, diagnosing it with the positivity, because you have the ability to recognize it, to learn, to act, and that is what you must do. A lot of people, when they're in politics, whether they're army, military, cops, politicians, they're just following orders. They're suppressing their conscience. They're just acting like a robot. In the same way, there's a lot of dead-on jobs nowadays where you act like a robot, which is why people want robots to actually replace those positions, because they demand that humans act like robots. And we're not robots, we're human beings, so there needs to be that human part to everyday doings, which is why if you were to have a job that was too robotic, you'd probably feel very uncomfortable or very bored. Whereas if it had a bit more excitement, a little bit more fun, maybe some human interaction, you realize it's not as bad as it could be. But are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you know what you're doing with that? See, I don't fear death. I don't fear anything. Fear contracts. It presupposes that something is there when it necessarily isn't, because you're thinking it's there. You're putting it in front of you in the future. You're thinking too much in the future. In the same way, people think too much in the past. Oh, it's about this history. We learn in school. This thing happened. This person existed. Oh, this thing is over there. This thing is over there. You've never even seen it before. It's all taken on faith. But nonetheless, everything is there to just keep you away from the present. And the present is where you are. The present is where you're breathing right now. When you breathe, and when you take the time for yourself, and when you reflect, that's how you know yourself. You find yourself by knowing yourself, and you know yourself by giving yourself more time to realize who you are, because time tells all truth. So by giving yourself more time, you give yourself more knowledge, you give yourself the ability to do things you never thought you would have done. The same way how, I'm reading a book now. Because I took out the time to read a book, now I gain knowledge. I took out some time to go on a health trend that actually benefits me, not because it's a trend, and you know what? It actually helped me. So you looked into it, you partook in it, you took your time out, and you invested it wisely. You invested your spiritual currency, as some people would say, your time and attention. What are you paying attention to? And what time are you giving to other people? And I like to also call it time and place. You have a place, and time is determined by what you do with your time, by what you do with your place. Where are you putting yourself? What environment are you living in? Very, very important questions. And notice it's all questions. When you think, what should I do? What action should I take? It's all questions. But if you just buy a product off the shelf, or you just follow orders, you're not asking questions. You're not thinking. And if you're not thinking about what you're doing, how do you know that option is going to be the best? You don't, because you're not thinking about what is the best. You never asked yourself that question. So the first step toward being your best is questioning what is the best, what is at least better than what it is now. And that requires taking a step back, looking at all your options, and then saying, okay, what is it that best attracts to me? You can say this is the real law of attraction, as in what is most compatible with my nature, with who I am, my environment. Because that is something I need to listen to. It's something that only I live in. Therefore, it's something that I am the expert of. No matter how many doctors or people I come across, they're teachers, they're guides. They can help me point in the right direction, although they should probably be asking questions too and helping me rather than dictating. I lead my own life. Recognizing that power is self-control. Having self-control means you're not a slave. It means you're free. And when you're free, guess what? You're happy. And when you're happy, you're living your best life. So that is the summary of why someone shouldn't fear this life or fear death. And maybe you can take that to some inspiration to say, if you don't fear death, then don't bring death upon yourself. Okay? Because death is not a thing of existence. Here, right now, you're living. That's what it means to live, is to always breathe. And you know what? You do it unconsciously. You breathe just normally, naturally. That's how amazing it is. And so when you really tune in to that breath and to the present, imagine what power you got there. Because now you're saying, okay, I see nature, I recognize its importance, I recognize I have to align to it, but now I'm going to see and understand it. Because now when I understand my nature more, I can understand what I'm putting out into the world. Okay, which means, like, for example, I'm breathing slow. I know that now I'm creating this parasympathetic nervous system. I'm able to now focus more. I'm able now to relax more. I'm able to recognize things in my environment more. I'm more mysterious. I'm more creative, per se. I'm not too anxiety-full. I'm not too distracted. I'm present. And that is the power in it, especially for today's world when you have mass advertising and mass information and so much going on. It's always important to have that time to step back, even through music. People even say that meditation could be done through just listening to sounds, because it makes you present. The sounds are all happening now. So that's another way people can tune into that, but it's also somewhat separate. Are you using the music to focus, or are you using the music to just consume like everything else in your life? Or do you have an attachment to that? If you have an attachment to it, well, then it becomes you, it becomes your identity, or you try to become something else, and you can stray away from yourself again. So that's why I tend to listen to instrumentals or things that really gets my mind thinking about myself and in different ways. So different music, different sounds, different frequencies, different environments in nature, walking through different sounds. All the sensory experiences gets our mind thinking in new ways. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, my brain would work a lot better if I'm recording this outside, which I'm probably going to be doing soon, actually. But it's very important, because then your brain starts invoking ideas you never thought you would have invoked, because you took the time and you're exposed to so many different senses. This is why people, there's this common quote, as you walk through nature, you receive a lot more than you asked for, a lot more than you expected to receive. But there is only one thing that I truly fear in this world, and that's not just politics. I don't fear people in politics. I fear their own ignorance, but that's the thing. I fear other people's ignorance. I fear that they will drive themselves off the cliff. I don't have to do anything. I can live my life and be happy. I fear that they, on the other hand, can be the detriment to everybody else, that they, can hurt themselves ultimately at the end of the day. And even, people like Socrates would say that it's not the wrongdoing that affects the person that's the problem. It's actually the wrongdoing is affecting the person who's committing it more than anything. They actually feel it more. He says it makes their soul impure. And in a sense, you can understand where this is coming from, because it creates this internal trauma and this internal confusion, because that confusion leads to a wrong action in the first place. When someone's out of alignment with themselves, they're going to do things which are out of alignment with the world in general, because to align to your own nature is equally to align to nature. You are within nature. So we have to understand ourselves. This is the common phrase, know thyself. Okay, so when people are ignorant, so they don't know themselves or their world, and they're both essentially connected, and they don't want to, because they want to stay distracted, they want to stay consuming, then that is the most dangerous thing. Now, of course, I talk about a most dangerous belief system. That's because it's based in ignorance. That belief system is based in the idea that I should ignore my conscience, I should ignore my decision-making, I should follow the orders of another. That belief system is called statism. I'll put the questions on the screen again. My followers are going to be like, oh, there's the questions again. But those questions are super important because that takes us out of ignorance and into knowledge. Oh, shoot, this is a belief system I never thought about before. Oh, here's these questions I never questioned before, especially in politics, which everybody thinks is by default necessary for order. We need politics, we need government. What would we do without it? As if it's part of nature, as if it's part of reality. And the question is it your best? Is it the life's best? Well, it looks like they keep rising and falling. They look like they never really help people. It looks like it's causing the number one, cause of unnatural death. Oh, but that's nothing to concern about. That totally does not, prevent us from achieving our best. No, our best is human evolution, consciousness, and increasing the empowerment of everybody in our environment, sharing with one another, allowing each other to rise above and not having one person rule over another. Okay, that is evolution. That is helping everyone to achieve their best, which requires shattering people's ignorance and not letting them be ignorant. But when you have a system that says, oh, well, we'll just give you this healthcare benefit, we'll give you this economic benefit, we can steal from this person to provide for this person, it's just ignorance, ignorance, ignorance almost everywhere you look. And never is it say, okay, well, always think for yourself because you are valuable. You have value. Everyone has value. And no one person has higher value or lower value. We're all human beings. We all are equal with the same rights. And some people will say these things, but then they'll be ignorant of other things and still give way to this belief system, which again, I call the most dangerous belief system. Larkin Rose calls it the most dangerous superstition. And because of that, their ignorance literally feeds to the most evil thing in the world. So how can we be the best, the greatest as humankind, if we are giving way to the greatest evil on earth, which is that which aggregates all forms of evil, any form of evil, and that is power, political power. You give an evil power, of course the evil is going to grow. Evil can't grow without the power. Power corrupts. Oh, well then how do we get rid of power? There actually is a way. Get rid of the belief system that other people have a higher claim over your life and property other than you. Get rid of that belief system that says there's such a thing as authority. No, we're all just human beings. We're just people. That's all it ever is. Okay, so I made my experiment documentary. I made my books, and you know what? I made them within certain weeks, sometimes all day and all night, because I'm passionate. I'm living my life like it's my best. I realize that this information is so important. I'm going to do everything it takes to bring it out to this world. Now, by everything it takes, it doesn't mean I take it out on myself, because I want to also do the best for myself. This is why I made my video titled, always do your best. This is like the one thing, the one message you can always live your life with is, how am I doing my best? But if you're not just asking yourself that question, but asking how do I live it, that is when we look at this huge reality and say, are we living under nature or are we living under government, which proclaims to be nature, proclaims to be what naturalizes us? Well, the word naturalize means to make natural. Government is claiming that we're natural in their system. Like, it's natural to be in their school system. It's natural to, worship a flag and do an allegiance, which all the corrupt, most tyrannical countries in the world had. All of them also had constitutions, but let's not talk about that. They're evil. They're bad. We're not like them. We're not repeating history. Ignorance. Because all the same things that they had, republics, constitutions, allegiances to flags, you get the right to vote. Guess what? All of those, Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, all of them, the People's Republic of China, we're a republic, not a democracy. All this jazz, it's still happening in America today. And people are ignorant to see it because, no, we're different. That's what every single country's populace will say, so they can remain controlled, so they can remain not their best, but enslaved, but controlled by other fellow human beings. And I hate to see it because I want our generation to be empowered. I want every generation to be empowered. But we can only get there by getting rid of this belief system. It's literally enslaving ourselves because of our own ignorance. We're not realizing that we ourselves are partaking in a belief system, which is very similar to the slaves on the plantation who said, I should be a slave. I should be under this guy's protection. I mean, he's protecting me. He's giving me all this stuff. I mean, well, if I was free, it'd be scary. I don't know what would happen without it. Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't imagine a reality without slavery. So the same type of mentalities in the people today, and then the excuse is made as well. Oh, well, if we abolish slavery, there'll be chaos. Oh, if we abolish government, it'll be chaos. It's the same excuses to not increase human evolution, to not live our lives like it's the best. It's crazy. And so I did like 14,000 words in 4 days for my Government is Unnatural book. I did my Liberator site in 1 day, like all this stuff. Because when you're passionate and you realize something's so important and barely anyone's talking about it, you almost feel morally obligated, well, you do, to produce, to be productive. And then you have purpose, you have value, which so many people are missing nowadays. And then they have all these mental problems, and then it just drives you more insane because you realize how essential the knowledge is. And you realize how many people don't have that knowledge. So their ignorance, yeah, it's their fault, but also it's like they never really saw any other way out of it. They never really saw any alternative. And so it's not like, I'm here to bash on people. It's really like, again, we're just people. I'm here to help them. I was one of them. Like, I was one of these people who followed the system, who believed in politics, knew everything about the politicians, knew everything about the system. It has to work this way and that way. But you know what? That old way of thinking is never going to get us to living like our best. And so yet you have these politicians here, la-da-dee-da, I'm going to run for politics, I'm going to pass a new law. They're not trying to evolve humanity by creating something new, by writing books and doing hours of research like me, day and night, literally draining my energy to zero every single day, putting out as much as I can. No, they're instead begging for votes, begging for money. They're not doing any work, and when they do get in office, nothing, it's out of my control. Oh, whatever ends up on my desk, I'll sign my name here. That's not real change, okay? I'm sorry, it has absolutely nothing to do with it. Watch my documentary titled The Ugly Truth About Politics. I break it down in detail. But real sacrifices have to be made, and real sacrifices get attacked by everyone with an agenda. Everyone who don't want to make that sacrifice, who are either jealous or don't have the courage to do it themselves because they are embracing their ignorance and they have a blockade, a cognitive dissonance that's keeping them in their ignorance because they don't want to see the knowledge. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to speak it. Their senses are blocked. Their nature is blocked. They're going to remain in the unnatural man-made slave system for as long as it exists because it's the only system they were born into and that they know and probably invested all their time into anyways, so they feel like they shouldn't give up. That is the modern day politician, and it's disgusting. I don't like politics. I think it's all bad, and I don't have to say I think, it's because they're trying to be somebody they're not. They're not living their best life. And I feel bad for them, again, because they're just people, but they're not treating other people as people if they feel like they have the right to rule over them, if they feel like they can take other people's money for their own paycheck. This is not serving the people as a leader where influence is made and you prove yourself by example. Made a whole documentary about that too. It's the total opposite, and you're putting on this identity. You have to look and act a certain way and just to appeal to people. It's nonsense. And so you're not living your best and you're not living honestly. Honesty is really everything to do with being your best, because then you feel the best. These people live themselves in these identities and attachments, and no wonder why they end up unhappy, no wonder why they end up corrupt, no wonder why they lose a sense of direction, and so does everyone else that follow them, because they don't have a direction themselves, otherwise they wouldn't follow them. So this is the world we live in. If you want to live every day like the best, then live and let others live. How hard is that? Well, be present, know yourself, that's it. I don't think it's that hard. But you know what? You have all these systems in place to keep you from doing that. And that's why it seems hard. And that's why people take it out on themselves and they be hard on themselves. Even though nature has it easy for you. You can automatically breathe. You can tune your own health. Your body can self-regulate. It can survive through so many different circumstances. It gives you the ability to create amazing technology and so much innovation which we've never seen before. But no, we have to stay in the old barbaric systems of government. We have to stay with the system and follow orders and play the right versus left game. Yep, Humanity's not going to go anywhere if you follow that direction, and you're not going to be seen in history either. You're not going to get anywhere with humanity. Humanity needs wisdom. The word human literally means man wise. You know, to be born again then would mean that you are creating wisdom, allowing wisdom. And if we want a rebirth of this world, and you feel like culture is dying, music is dying, you know, people are estranged, they're creeps, they're weird, they're nothing, we don't know what's going on, we're all wrapped in confusion and chaos, and then we yell and say anarchy is chaos, when government basically creates it every time, then, you know, we have a lot to figure out. And you know what? It's so easily figured out if we can figure out ourselves, because that's the one thing we can and the only thing we can figure out. Instead of trying to figure out everybody else, tell them what to do with their own life, try to change them. I'm not about doing that, but that's what politics tries to do. That's what a lot of these systems try to do. They're all based on the authority dynamic. I'm not based on the authority dynamic. I'm based on helping people, working with people, working ultimately with nature and what is right, truth, morality, which has nothing to do with legality and authority and titles and positions and egos and attachments. No, not at all. Thank you very much for watching. Nature is the answer. Corey the Ninjalot. Take care.